Welcome to the regular meeting of the Public Health and Safety Committee for March 19, 2025. I am Jason Chavez, and I am the chair of this committee. Before we begin the meeting, I want to offer a friendly reminder to all members, staff, and the public that these meetings are broadcast live to enable greater public participation. These broadcasts include real-time captioning as a further method to increase the accessibility of our proceedings to the community. Therefore, all speakers need to be mindful of the rate of their speech so that our captioners can fully capture and transcribe all comments for the broadcast. We ask all speakers to moderate the speed and clarity of their comments. At this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll so we can verify quorum for this meeting.
Councilmember Payne.
Present.
Rainville is absent. Ellison.
Here.
Palmisano.
Present.
Vice Chair Wansley is absent. Chair Chavez.
Present.
There are 4 members present.
Let the record reflect that we have a quorum. With that, the agenda for today's meeting is before us. There are 5 items on today's consent agenda. Item number 2 is authorizing a contract with the Minnesota State Fair for additional enforcement during the fair. Item number 3 is authorizing the submittal of a grant application to the BCA for the Minnesota Automobile Theft Prevention Program. Item number 4 is authorizing a contract with the BCA for a Minnesota Human Trafficking Investigation Task Force full-time analyst. And item number 5 is authorizing a contract with the BCA for police investigator participation on the Minnesota Human Trafficking Investigations Task Force. Item number 6 is scheduling a public comment period for April 9th to receive comments on autonomous food delivery technology and its impact on workers. Colleagues, are there any discussions on these items? Council President Payne.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I see on the Joint Powers Agreement on item number 2 with the State Fair that there's a mounted patrol component to that. I was just curious if maybe MPD staff could come up and just kind of give us an update on what the status of our mounted patrol is. I know that there was money moved around during the budget amendment process, and I'm just wanting to know where our operational situation is for mounted patrol.
All right, thank you. So what I'll do first here is I'll move items 3 through 6 for approval and set aside item number 2 for a discussion. So all those in favor, unless there are other colleagues on queue, I will move approval of items 2 through 6. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Items 2 through 6 are approved. Item number 2 is now before us. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. Council President Payne. MPD did take a $150,000 ongoing reduction in lieu of the mounted patrol reduction. We're reducing our property services projects on an ongoing basis. This would include property service and projects would include like painting, sidewalk repair, staff moves, shelving, lockers, things of that nature. The criteria for moving property service projects forward now, excuse me, it must be essential to service, safety, wellness, or part of the assessment requirement. So we're reducing spending in those areas in lieu of the mounted patrol reduction.
Would the assessment be in reference to the settlement agreement facilities assessment?
Councilmember Payne, yes, it would be.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Are you making a motion, Council President Payne?
I move to approve.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Nay. Any abstentions? And that item carries. All right, colleagues. Next up, there is we're going to take up the public hearing item. This is the passage of an ordinance relating to amending provisions of review panels to provide for temporary assignment of trained members of the Civil Rights Commission. I'll kick it off by calling on City Clerk Carl and also welcome Vice Chair Wansley to the dais.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. As you indicated, my name is Casey Carl. I have the privilege of serving as the clerk for the City of Minneapolis. May it please the committee, the proposal presented for your consideration provides for a temporary expansion in the pool of eligible civilians to serve on the review panels tasked with reviewing and making recommendations on cases of alleged police misconduct. As this body is aware, the City of Minneapolis established a Community Commission on Police Oversight, which is codified in Chapter 172 of the Minneapolis Code of Ordinances. The Community Commission on Police Oversight, or CCPO, is a Tier 2 appointed body within the city enterprise. Tier 2 bodies are created by ordinance subject to applicable state law and/or the city charter. They have a defined scope of delegated authority, and they are subject to the general oversight of council and mayor. The CCPO specifically is charged with two functions. First, the CCPO provides a public forum for meaningful community engagement and police oversight. Second, the individual commissioners are part of the city's investigatory review process for complaints that involve the police department through work on review panels. It is this latter function, the work of the review panels, that is the most critical component of providing civilian oversight of the police department. Under Section 172.40A, each review panel consists of 5 individuals, 3 commissioners from the CCPO who are selected by the Civil Rights Director or their designee, and 2 sworn officers of the police department holding at least the rank of lieutenant or higher. Each month at its regular meetings, the CCPO receives reports from both the Office of Police Conduct Review, a division of the Civil Rights Department, and the Police Department's Internal Affairs Unit, which present the status of the various cases. While the number of cases going forward changes each month, there is a significant backlog of unaddressed cases that the CCPO inherited when that body was created in 2022. That backlog of cases stretches back a number of years and includes cases from the Office of Police Conduct Review as well as Internal Affairs. Over the 2 years that the CCPO has been in existence, staff have worked to address the backlog while also proactively managing new cases as a go-forward basis continues. While significant work has been done to date on the backlog within Internal Affairs and the Office of Police Conduct Review, there remain at present time approximately 202 cases in the combined backlog that need to be processed through these review panels. The Office of Police Conduct Review has worked to standardize a schedule for regular review panels each month and is working to add both weekdays and weekends to the mix of potential dates for scheduling these review panels based on panelist availability. As that work continues forward, there is a recognition that the city needs to take extraordinary efforts to eliminate the backlog completely if the CCPO is to be set up for success on a go-forward basis. That requires more qualified and trained civilians to be available to serve on these review panels beyond the 15 commissioners on the CCPO today. As a consequence, and in recognition of the urgent need and timing involved, President Payne, in collaboration with staff, is bringing forward this amendment to increase the number of qualified and trained civilians that could be assigned to review panels. This would be achieved by adding civil rights commissioners to the mix, assuming that they complete the necessary training and otherwise meet all the qualifications set forth in the enabling ordinance. The Civil Rights Department supports both the CCPO and the Civil Rights Commission, so they are ideally positioned to manage this temporary expansion involving both of those appointed bodies. By taking this action, staff anticipates that the city will be able to increase the number and the pace of review panels throughout the remainder of the current fiscal year, with the goal of eliminating the existing backlog. The ordinance amendment provides that this temporary expansion will expire automatically by December 31st of this year. After that, we anticipate the CCPO will be sufficiently positioned to address review panels on a go-forward basis. That completes my prepared comments, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to respond to questions the committee might have.
Thank you, Clerk Carl. How about we open the public hearing first, and
Sure.
then if our colleagues have questions, we can transition into that. Thank you for the presentation. I will now open the public hearing. If you did not sign up yet and wish to speak, please see our clerk and sign up over there. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to provide testimony. With that, there are no speakers. And seeing that no one wishes to speak on this item, I will now close the public hearing. Now, colleagues, does anybody have any questions for the clerk? President Payne.
Thank you, Chair Chavez, and thank you, Clerk Carl. I think you articulated what we're doing here, but the main goal is to work through the backlog, and then also I'm working on some more comprehensive amendments. One of those is to expand the membership of the CCPO by having non-commissioner members who can also sit on panels, because at this current time, we do have a major backlog because of just history and context, but going forward, we're hoping to have a throughput through our review panels that the current level of commissioners could handle, but the ordinance is going to allow for us to flex to a higher member number so that we can move more cases through panels. And so this is a temporary fix, and we have a longer term fix coming so that we can make sure that we don't end up in another situation where we have hundreds of cases in backlog. So just wanted to share that context.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, I will move approval of this item. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is receiving and filing a presentation related to the city's response to the opioid epidemic. Due to a scheduling conflict with our presenters today, I will make a motion to postpone this item to the May 7th committee meeting for public health and safety. Are there any questions or discussions on this motion? Seeing no questions, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? That motion carries. The next and final item, colleagues, is receiving and filing a quarterly update from the Office of Community Safety and its departments. Here to kick off this item is the Office of Community Safety, Commissioner Todd Barnett. Welcome. And hi, Jared.
Good afternoon, Chair and council members. I'm Todd Barnett, of course. I'm the Commissioner of Community Safety for the City of Minneapolis. Excuse me. With me today will be Director Amanda Harrington, Director Sayre, Director Hodney, and I believe AC Gators will also present as well. Just as a reminder for the public, the Office of Community Safety has 5 departments under it: 911, Emergency Management, Fire, Neighborhood Safety, and Police, of course. But we strive to work with all departments in a collaborative and coordinated effort. And that's really outlined in our mission. And that mission is to provide coordinated, comprehensive and equitable safety services to all residents and visitors. Our vision, of course, is a city where all people feel safe, social disparities are eliminated, and all residents can access opportunities and resources. Highlights for the first quarter this year really is to lift up the work that all staff throughout the enterprise has done to move the work of the settlement agreement forward. There's been a lot of coordination and collaboration to do that. Also highlighting that during the first quarter, the independent evaluator, LIFA, published its first biannual progress report, which showed that the city, and credited the city with progress towards compliance. Looking at some of the other work that has been done as well, in which the staffs across the enterprise has been very involved in and helpful with, of course, is us being able to submit the consent decree along with the U.S. Department of Justice. That consent decree is still under review in federal court. I think it's worth noting that we continue and plan to continue to do the work even without that consent decree being finalized. We continue to work forward beyond that agreement to bring lasting change to the city. Also, just highlighting for the first quarter some of the recruitment and hiring efforts. You'll hear more from MPD about an uptick in MPD interns being hired, community service officers being hired, and also lateral members being hired as well. 911, of course, with the direction of our Director Hodney, I feel like each time her or I come up here, we say almost staffed. And that's because they are almost staffed each time, and then someone retires or someone gets a promotion, and we go down one or two people. But that department, through her leadership and her leadership team, with the help of our HR department, has just done a great job to get us in a spot much better than we were in 2020. Just looking ahead to quarter two, of course, I think all you're aware of us launching sometime this spring the Ambassador Program along Lake Street and Franklin Avenue. The next steps for that pilot program, of course, is to negotiate contracts with the vendors, finalize the data that we'll collect and analyze, and training for those ambassadors and staff. And we're very excited to really get that started and evaluate that program and strategically get that into our safety ecosystem. And then just lastly, within the next month or two, we'll have a director of neighborhood safety. We are in the phase of doing interviews. We've completed the first round of interviews at this point, and we should be hiring someone within the next month or two. With that, I'm going to pass it over to our Director of Design and Implementation, Director Amanda Harrington. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome up, Director Harrington.
Good afternoon, Amanda Harrington, Director of Community Safety Design and Implementation. As you know, I did provide an in-depth update before this body on March 5th. I will just provide a few brief updates today. One of them is that New York University's policing project staff are in town this week doing ride-alongs, sit-alongs, and discussions and interviews with police, fire, behavioral crisis response, 911, 311, and traffic control so that they can move along some of the recommendations that they've provided. The two tasks that they're working on currently include producing draft policies to address recommendation to transport individuals to alternate destinations in lieu of arrest or transport to the emergency room, and do a formal review of data input processes for first responders and alternate responders in the safety ecosystem to get a better picture of why the data and reporting gaps identified in the asset and gaps analysis exist and how best to address them. I do continue to meet with that team weekly, and they've been a huge asset. We have now completed 46 recommendations from the Safe and Thriving Communities report and the NYU Asset and Gaps analysis collectively. That's 3 more than my report a couple of weeks ago, so work continues to progress. And last week, I met with the clerk's office for the first time to begin concrete steps toward formation of the Safe and Thriving Communities Advisory Work Group. We plan to recruit for that work group in mid-April, review applications in May, and bring forth recommendations in June, with the work group officially starting in July of this year. Lastly, we remain on track to put technology into the Lake Street Safety Center so that we can facilitate non-emergency police reports at that site, and we remain on track to open the South Minneapolis Community Safety Center in 2026. For updates, I would just remind this body and community members on the work of the Safe and Thriving Communities Report and NYU Asset and Gaps Analysis. Folks can always go to our webpage that has an interactive dashboard to get the most current information. I will pass it on to AC Gators.
Welcome up. And after this presentation, we'll have questions for the first 3 departments, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Chavez and Vice Chair Wansley, Council President, committee members. I'm Christopher Gators, Assistant Chief, Minneapolis Police Department. What I'm going to do is present to you the highlights for the first quarter from the Minneapolis Police Department. As you can see on the screen there, what we've noticed in the first quarter is that we had, as far as robberies, carjackings, and auto thefts, all of them were down. As you can see, it was down 47% reduction with robberies, 40% with carjackings, 32% with gunshot wound victims, 24% reduction in auto thefts, and 11% reduction in aggravated assaults. The interesting piece with this is you notice that most of those are all violent crimes, and you may say to yourself, what about the 24% for the auto thefts, is when you speak about violent crimes. But what we have noticed over many years in policing is that when individuals steal cars, they steal vehicles, they go out and they actually use those vehicles to commit other crimes, and most times those are other violent crimes. So that is a great statistic, saying that it's a 24% reduction with the auto thefts. In addition to that, with the strategies that Chief O'Hara has put in, we also noticed that during our MSTAT week, which is a Monday to Monday week, and we review every Thursday crime statistics. So we noticed that for one period of time, 1 week, that we had 0 shootings during a 1 week period of time, which is outstanding to see, you know, in comparison to the crime over the years in the past. That hasn't been that low since week 11 of 2019. So it once again shows that, you know, those strategies that Chief O'Hara is putting in place in his goal of making our city one of the safest cities in the United States is in play, and a lot of those strategies are showing that they're working. Still a lot of work to do, but it shows, it's a sign that those strategies are working. Also, when we get to the crime and kind of why it's down, the reasons are because of the proactive and precision policing efforts. A lot of those efforts where Chief O'Hara has the concept of taking the data-led policing effort and concept, where we do review those data to make certain that our officers are being allocated in the areas where true crime is taking place, and not just haphazardly going around and looking for crime necessarily, but we're actually allocating officers in the areas where we see those crime patterns taking place. And speaking of the crime patterns, as you can see in the first bullet point, the crime pattern response protocol is another strategy that the chief brought into play. What had been happening before, and you can still categorize it as, when you look at proactive and reactive policing, you can still categorize it as reactive policing, but it's a faster way and method of getting to an area where crimes have taken place. So an example would be, making something up here. So example would be if there were a robbery of persons taking place, a person's walking down the street, someone, you know, decides to victimize them and rob them. What happens is once our supervisors or officers notice on the street that there's a pattern taking place where you may have 2 or 3 robberies of person within a few blocks of one another, and the method of operation, how they're committing those crimes is taking place, what happens is the supervisors then put in place and implement a crime pattern response protocol. So they'll ask for additional officers to saturate an area so that victimization isn't continuing to happen, so we can at least make an arrest, or at least even prevent, by us just being there in space, the crimes from occurring. Late night safety plan as well has been expanded. That is now Friday through Sunday night, and that is in areas and corridors of our city that are dense. And you're talking about downtown areas, you're talking about uptown area, Dinkytown area at times, depending on what's taking place. And what they do is they allocate more officers in those areas to make certain that our patrons to those areas and businesses and those who visit and frequent those areas and in Minneapolis are kept safe. And that is another strategy that's been brought into play. Also, our curfew task force, although crime is down in many ways, we've also noticed that the actions of those committing those crimes the people have gotten younger. So what we did is we tried to come up with a strategy, and the chief came up with the strategy of the curfew task force. What that does is work with our officers who are allocated to certain areas, but also combine them with partnerships with our citizens, with our community members, who are also have a vested interest in making sure that our youth are not participating and not in areas where they shouldn't be after hours, after curfew. And the engagement with that is pretty brilliant, because it's not always police officers who are engaging. We actually have community members engaging with the youth, and they're able to converse with them and explain to them, why being in certain areas after those hours are not necessarily in the best benefit for them. So they encourage them to go to another place or go home and make sure that they're safe. So those strategies are also ways that we have reduced crime in our city. Getting into the recruitment and lateral graduation ceremony that we had back in January 30th. I'll get to the pictures in a second, at least one, but with that ceremony, what we did was we welcomed 18 officers, 9 recruits, and 9 laterals. And often you'll hear me say about laterals, a lot of those are individuals from different departments who want to be a part of the change we're making here in Minneapolis, so they come over from other departments. So that was a nice, very nice number to have in all 3 platforms. I will say that we've had 42 officers so far this year that we've hired. And when I say officers, those are in different, I'll say, platforms or levels of hirement. So they could be recruits, or they could be cadets, or they could be laterals as well. And it's only March right now. Last year we had 68 for the entire year. So we're looking at that as definitely a progress for us. As far as the picture that you see on your left on the screen, very heart-touching to citizens and people who frequent Minneapolis, as well as internally, our own employees here within the city and within the police department. What that is a picture of is a person that many of you are aware of, Spike Moss, who has been fighting civil rights years and years before I was even born, and that was a while ago. And the thing is that he fought for many of us to just have opportunities, just the opportunity to be employed. And he was offered the opportunity to speak at one of our graduation ceremonies, and he took us up on it. And after the ceremony, having conversation with him, as we conversed, he said that he was very happy to be alive to see the changes that were occurring with our police department. And he also mentioned the fights that he had with the fire department, not literally with the fire department, the fights for civil rights to give opportunities for people to be employed many, many years ago. And he was very happy to see it come to fruition, he said, while he was alive. And he was very pleased with the way the police department itself and Chief O'Hara was moving in direction with hiring individuals and giving opportunities for individuals and making our department reflect more so of the citizenry in our city. On the next slide here, as we continue, recruitment and lateral hiring graduation, we noticed that we had an increase in applications of 133%. And with those applications, we also noticed that we finished the year with more officers than we began with for the first time since 2019. The attrition has been beating us every year, and this past year was the first time in a long time since 2019 we actually had an increase that we noticed. The classes are some of the largest classes that we've had and some of the more diverse classes that we've had in many years. So that's also a great highlight for our department. We also have legacy officers, and those are officers who their parents were law enforcement officers, and then now their children are becoming law enforcement officers. Once again, a great highlight to that is the fact is, as you have kids, you want the best for your kids, and even in the workplace, working for a place that they respect. And we're noticing that the legacy hires for our department is increasing in the last few years, just because individuals now truly believe in the fact that we're doing the right thing, doing it for the right reason, and trying to do what the citizens are expecting from us as a police department, and they're actually getting their own children involved in it as well. The next slide is, and I'll go back a little bit in some historic piece for just some reference of understanding. What Chief O'Hara did was we were looking at trying to bring in individuals in our police department who could speak to our supervisors, speak to individuals who are actually leading our department. And Chief O'Hara, what he did was brought in what I call legacy, or not legacy, but legends in law enforcement. If there were a Mount Rushmore for law enforcement currently, these individuals most likely would be on it. And what he did was bring in two individuals from Los Angeles Police Department, Chief Charlie Beck and Chief Moore, and also a retired Philadelphia Commissioner, Charles Ramsey. And these individuals had been through similar circumstances and leadership and managing departments, especially with the LAPD, who had two individuals who, if you remember many years ago with the incident with Rodney King, he brought these individuals in who helped manage that department and understood the purpose of having, whether it be a consent decree or just a change in management, who has an understanding of the wants of the people and also the need for changing the culture of a department. And they spoke to many of us in leadership and explained their experiences, and a lot of those experiences were similar to what we see here today and have seen over the last few years, and the wants and expectations of the community, and just to be listened to. And a lot of those things resonated with our supervisors. There was a part where our supervisors went out and actually had an ability to talk without the executives there and ask questions where they can be open and feel free to ask questions and get a better understanding of the concepts and the reasons why we have a settlement agreement, the reasons why we have the potential consent decree, and how that actually betters and changes the culture and betters the service piece for our citizens as far as public safety. So the chief brought them in, and the officers were very pleased with that. As far as looking ahead on our department, the police department is bringing in, and this will occur, I believe, next week, a researcher who's going to be presenting on research-based police reforms and measures, again, hitting the nail right on the head and the things that we are trying to do here as a police department and changing the way we operate and making certain that we're consistent and congruent with the settlement agreement and a consent decree. And also, this person is coming in from the Ohio State University and will, again, continue to educate officers on the reasons why, these research-based policing reform measures are needed. Second piece of that is our focused enforcement detail. We are continuing those. We did those as well last year. We're continuing them in current time and in the future. April and May will be our next two that are scheduled. And also, all of you, as you many times are aware, are invited to join us. We are memorializing at the 5th Precinct the death of our officer, Jamal Mitchell, which took place last year, May 30th. And that is something that will be taking place here in May. And it'll be near the 1-year anniversary of his death. And as I said, all of the council members are invited to that as well. And the last piece is the Academy for 2025, just to update you that we have a graduating class taking place on May 21st, where you're also invited, and we have 12 recruits who are graduating then as well. As far as the updates for the Minneapolis Police Department, that concludes that with me, and I will next bring up Director Sayer.
Thank you. We're going to open up for questions just so it can help flow and ease time. I'm going to look at the queue. The first person we have is Vice Chair Wansley.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. First, if we can make sure OCS gets an updated version of the presentation onto LIMS. I noticed the slide is different than the one that is present in LIMS. It seems like you all added some more information, so to make sure that our clerks get a copy of that. The first couple of questions that I have, and I guess I can start backwards since you're already up here, DC Gators. Going to slide 9. I wanted to see if you could also give just an update on backlog of open cases, because these numbers are great to see, but knowing that there have been like some upticks in some level of thefts, depending on where you're at. I know we've had that in my ward, and just wanted to get a sense of, like how things are going with addressing the backlog of open cases and the timeline around MPD's anticipation of filling all of the civilian investigator positions.
Yeah, as far as our chair and council member, Vice Chair Wansley, as far as an actual number, I would have to get back because I don't have that at the top of my head. I would have to get with our analysts to produce those actual numbers. But I can get those to your office as well.
Okay, so I'll note that for our staff memo question and can follow up with you all about that and make sure all the committee members see this. I know you also spoke to, in terms of some of the additional highlights, in terms of what has been contributing to some of the decreases, but are there other things that you could share that you think are helping support the reduction in these trends? I know I had a community meeting last night where Inspector Torberg talked about some of the other services like BCR and then the embedded social worker that has been instrumental in supporting officers and residents in hopefully addressing some of these issues and leading to the reduction. So just wanted to see if, you were seeing similar things.
Chair and Vice Chair, absolutely. With our police department, and I'm giving the MPD update, so I'm focusing on that. However, I will say that as an ecosystem that we have, as an entire enterprise that we have, we've learned that we can't do this alone, and we rely on other resources within our city and resources externally as well. And we use those and we rely on those. So BCR, phenomenal job that they've been doing. We can't say enough positive things about what they've been doing for our police department over the years. And even though, we hate to continue giving Chief Tyner credit for things, but yeah, the BCR has done a phenomenal job, along with our citizens, people who are just visiting Minneapolis. They're reporting things that they see, and when we see that or we hear that, we can also then put that into that data-led kind of policing effort. And when we're getting that information, precinct inspectors can then allocate officers and work more in a proactive way to have officers in areas where we believe crimes may occur. And as an entire enterprise, us all working together, because we all want a safe place for all of us to live, visit, and just enjoy, and whether it be in commerce or just a good laugh. You come to our city, we want to be safe, and it doesn't come just from the police department. It comes from every department within our city.
Yeah, thank you for flagging that. And I think it would be great, and I know we'll address this in the summer safety presentation that should be coming forward, I think next month from OCS, but also just getting more information about the embedded social workers in the precinct. I think we often don't hear about the capacity or role that they're providing to officers directly and how they're also helping make an impact on you all's workload and how that's translating to data. So hopefully we'll have some of that in that presentation. But yeah, thank you for offering that clarity. And then going to slide 10, around the curfew task force. So I did want to get some clarification on this because you talked about some of the positive impacts from this particular program, and wanted to get a sense of MPD's long-term plans around this. Just wasn't sure if this was like a temporary body until the Neighborhood Safety Department or OCS programs that are focusing also on young people are going to get stabilized or put in place, or are they complementing each other?
And Chair and Council Member, I would look at it as a complement to each other, along with the fact that, I mean, we're wanting as a police department, the chief wants to work with everyone who wants to, you know, put their hand in the pot and help our city be safe. The greatest thing about this is that, you know, many and oftentimes officers are out and about on the street, and it's not as easy to approach, you know, youth always in a uniform. And a lot of times we need the assistance from individuals who, one, have an expertise in that area and also have their organizations based on dealing with youth in part. So we want to work in partnership to make certain that we are able to engage with youth, especially when it comes to some of these areas of downtown. Sometimes it's bars that they're hanging out around, and we all know if you're, you know, a young teenager, it's probably not the best place to hang around, because you're oftentimes having conversed with, you know, adults who may be inebriated, and you know, different things can happen. Sometimes you can become a victim. So what we want to do is partner with these groups or individuals in our communities to make certain that we're getting these kids in areas where they're going to be safe, and in areas where they're not hanging with, you know, adults, especially after curfew, just to keep them safe. So yeah, that's something that we're definitely interested in continuing in long term.
Yeah, and kind of follow up to that question, does MPD kind of have an established list of referring or referral partners, both on the organizational side, but also thinking of Hennepin County, because anytime you're interacting with young people, there is oftentimes a next step of how to get them involved in or connected to some resources with the goal of not having them, you know, commit another offense. So just trying to get a sense if there's been like solidified partnerships as the same of Neighborhood Safety Department with our GVI and YGVI program, specifically YGVI, if we had MOUs in place. So wanted to see if there's a similar structure for this program.
And Chair and Vice Chair, as far as the resources that are available, many of these contacts are by the groups who are there, and we encourage that. We will, I wouldn't say hands off as a police department, but we want to kind of stay back and let those who are in plain clothes, regular clothes, you know, are people who consistently do this work on a daily basis with that age group, do their thing. We, as far as the sources that are offered, they're offered by some of those groups. But as far as a long-term contract piece, I would rather defer that off to OCS as far as the contracts with the groups that are often down there.
Okay, so MPD doesn't have direct contracts with it, because I'm assuming these people aren't volunteering their time, could not do that legally, but is there, that's why I mentioned the solidified partnerships, if there's contracts in place that with organizations to support this specific program then?
Yeah, once again, because the groups do change. On a different week, it could be, say, there could be 5 groups down there or 3 groups, but the next day it could be a different group of individuals. So whether or not there are contracts with each individual group, I just don't want to put my foot in my mouth and say that I know more about what I'm trying to speak about. But I know neighborhood safety may have a better answer for that.
So is it Neighborhood Safety that's providing the community organizational support for the curfew task force? It seemed like this was MPD led, so I assume that like MPD would be leading the charge for like working directly with those.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah. Hi, Director Harrington.
Chair Chavez, Vice Chair Wansley, if I may, I've been involved in some of these conversations, and so I may have a little bit more information than AC Gators, although he's doing a great job. So a lot of the curfew task force, all of the curfew task force has been police at this time. It started off with some collaboration that was happening between violence interrupters, focused on juveniles downtown, but it shifted into police kind of checking in with youth who they had seen on the street previously and offering services. They were offering services through the city and the county. But as AC Gator said, the police checking in is not sufficient, and so they've been working with neighborhood safety so that we can work that collaboration into future contracts. Neighborhood safety has community organizations that can do this work and likely have trusted relationships and connections with the families that we're reaching out to. We just didn't have that collaboration formalized yet, so we're working on that next.
Okay, is there a timeline around that? Because it seems like this has already been in place. You all are rolling it out into, seems like, foreseeable future, so timeline on when that would be solidified.
The curfew task force has been in place with just the police on their own, and that will continue until we have the community partners in place. That's just a matter of negotiations with the individual partners. And I anticipate those being done in the next month.
Okay. Okay, and that would be through the neighborhood safety side?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for providing that clarity. And then going to actually OCS. Thank you, DC Gators. I did, and probably, I don't think, Director Harrington, you might not be the person for this one. This might actually be Commissioner Barnett, but this is slide 5 related to the director search, or maybe even Deputy Director Leah Lakes. But I wanted to get a sense of how community has been involved in the process of that search for the new director for the Neighborhood Safety Department. I know that was feedback that I heard in terms of we do a robust search for all the other safety positions, and community typically do have a vehicle either through a public hearing or through, for the chief, there was like tours. So just to make sure that whoever is hired next both has that subject matter expertise, but also has the capacity to foster inclusive, professional, and productive relationships with key community partners and leaders. How have the community been involved in this search process?
Chair Chavez, Vice Chair Wansley, first, let me say this. When I stood up here, I named everyone except for Chief Tyner. He was behind me. I looked to my right. I did not see him. So when I named the folks who were here to present, I did not mention Chief Tyner. To answer your question, Chair Wansley, we have, I'll have to go back and look, as part of the final review, I believe we have 1 or 2 community members on the review panel that we have for the director position. If that answers your question about the involvement there.
So 1 or 2, so the departments, so there hasn't been more public engagement. I know you all get to select who you invite to be part of those panels, but there hasn't been much broader engagement besides that.
No, not like we've, I guess the short answer is no.
Okay. Okay. Good clarification there. And, yeah, that's the question I had for you. Actually, sorry, DC Gators, I did have one more question
All right,
for MPD.
thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, this one slipped off my radar, but especially since we just had the most recent closed session on the police contract, I did want to get a sense of if you could speak to any of the impacts or benefits you have seen related to the new staffing flexibility that was included in the last police or most recent police contract. I mean, you cited throughout your presentation that there is a lot more flexibility in deploying resources more in a targeted approach to where you're seeing incidents happen. So just wanted to get a sense of how that's been a factor in maybe some of that flexibility or proactive deployment.
And Chair and Vice Chair, just could you be more specific when you're flexibility in what nature?
So from my understanding, the police contract, one of the wins was giving MPD or more managerial control around staffing flexibility, specifically that LOA around 70-30. I think there was other provisions around, related to how to address more staffing allocations and letting the chief or the manager being able to do that. So we heard that was a critical need from the chief, MPD, so wanted to see how that's been helpful in you all's successes.
And Chair and Vice Chair, absolutely. It's been a success. The chief has the ability to now, without the many challenges and hoops to jump, if I may say, to move resources where he knows that it's going to best serve our citizens. And by doing that with our human resources on our department, with our FTEs, it's definitely playing a part in a strategy to combat crime when there's a need to allocate officers in certain areas, or in a long term, or even a shorter or temporary term. He has that ability to do that, and that's definitely a benefit.
That's good to hear. Okay, those are all the questions I had.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Council President Payne.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. This question is probably for you, AC Gators. Sorry. On slide 10, the crime pattern response protocol. I'm just curious, it feels like this is working and this is successful. I'm presuming you're using a data-driven approach to look at where you should be centralizing resources or saturating resources. What's the protocol after we've found the success in one geography, right? Whether it's Dinkytown and Uptown is getting some saturated response based on some crime pattern analysis. If Dinkytown and Uptown have a significant reduction in crime, I'm assuming that our data-driven approach would suggest there'd be a different part of the city that might need that saturation. If we saturate over there, are we seeing crime patterns increasing again in the areas where we had originally saturated, or what's our methodology for balancing that?
And Chair and Council President, just to make certain, we're talking about bullet point 1?
Yeah, I mean, I'm using Dinkytown and Uptown as just an example, but I'm assuming in bullet point 1, you're saturating based on geography. Once you see the results in that geography, are we pulling those resources and going somewhere else? And when we do that, do we see those crime rates tick back up, or do we see that be a durable change?
And Chair and Council Member or President, and I think I can answer this kind of using both of the bullet points. When you're looking at the crime pattern data, it's not necessarily a long study of crime. You're looking at a crime pattern response protocol where these incidents are happening frequently over a short period of time. So as I was kind of explaining before, I'll use the same example. If you had like a person being robbed on the street and another robbery takes place a few blocks away with the same method of operation of robbing that person, and then another robbery takes place a few blocks away, then it's not necessarily a study as we look at analysts coming in and look at the crime. I hate to use common sense approach, but when you're having the similar or the same or similar crimes taking place in a very small area, then that's when those supervisors will say, we're going to now implement this protocol, and we're going to have more officers brought in from either if we have more officers available within that said precinct, or if we have to bring officers in from other precincts. We just want to saturate that area, one, to make certain that no one else is going to be victimized, and two, hopefully finding the individual or individuals who are victimizing our citizens and people who are frequenting those areas. And what we try to do is then immediately try to solve or resolve this situation. On a longer term approach, when you're looking at the late night safety plan, you're looking more at data through analysis, and those data that are reviewed and analyzed. The precincts also receive reports on the crimes taking place. So you have a longer term approach when you get to the Dinkytown and Uptown areas, where we can actually bring in more resources, knowing the strategies that we're going to put into place. If there are specific addresses where crimes have been occurring over the past week, they can be allocated, officers can be allocated to those areas. And it's kind of a short and long term, but they're two different strategies, if that makes sense. Ultimately, once again, I know we say internal and external. Externally, we also, if we make an arrest, the hope is that, that person is then eventually, charged with a crime. And then if that person is then arrested for those crimes that have taken place, or the group of individuals, we would hope that that will be the reduction in that area, because oftentimes they'll repeat the same and similar crime patterns or methods of committing those crimes in areas, and they may jump to another part of town. They may leave Dinkytown and say, you know what, let's try this again in Uptown, because there are a lot of people in Uptown. So what we're hoping to do is stop that pattern of crime happening with individuals who are sometimes groups or even one person who continues that same method of operation of criminal activity in different locations. So ultimately, our goal is to stop that, saturate a different area if those data say that, and then hopefully the person or people involved in the crime in another area are being dealt with through the criminal justice system.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Seeing no one else on cue, we will continue with the rest of the presentation. Next up, we have Director Sayers with the Emergency Management Department.
Good afternoon. I am Rachel Sayer. I am the Director of the Emergency Management Department. So for Q1, we achieved 100% staffing in the department. We, through a series of workshops, developed our 5-year strategy and vision, which I am excited to next quarterly presentation share with you all. We held our what will be our final long-form Ready Camp in January. We are altering our format so that it's much more accessible. This previous version was a 6-hour, usually 2-day presentation, which made it very difficult for a lot of our residents to access. So we're switching to a 1-hour format, and more changes to come, but excited to roll that out over the course of this year. One of our team members also attended 2 different cultural radio shows, La Raza and KMOJ, to provide information about homeowners and renters insurance, which is one of the best household-level preparedness activities that anyone can take part in to be prepared for emergencies and disasters. We also completed our ongoing tests of IPAWS, which is a emergency notification system, and our ongoing testing and monitoring of the sirens, which EMD manages for the city. We as well held one of our enterprise exercises. This stems from the NIMS maintenance over the last few years. So ongoing, we are doing 2 enterprise exercises per year. This one was held in early January, and we focused on 3 different exercise components, one of which was what leadership needs to do within the enterprise when a disaster strikes. Another is just how physically we can organize ourselves in various locations. And then finally, we rehearsed unified command, which is when 2 different elements of the city enterprise practice joint leadership of a response. Finally, as briefed here a few weeks ago, we are working on various projects related to severe weather that we will update you on as work progresses. Just a quick outlook into Q2 and Q3 hazards that we're tracking. This is a the spring flood outlook is lower than normal, which is good news for us here in Minneapolis. However, tied to that, I wouldn't be shocked if we saw this summer poor air quality, the potential for higher wildfires obviously outside of our area, but with that bringing poor air quality into the city. H5N1, otherwise known as bird flu, we are tracking that really at this point in terms of danger for pets or for backyard flocks. We've been putting out preparedness information and will continue to do so. And then overall, just flagging with the ongoing change in availability of basic services, the coverage of basic services, we are expecting the potential for increased need as well as the increased severity of need across the board. That is it for me. and I'll turn it over to Chief Tyner.
Thank you. Welcome up, Chief Tyner.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I am Fire Chief Brian Tyner, and this is our quarterly update. Our mission statement is that employees of the Minneapolis Fire Department are thoroughly trained and ready to protect lives, property, and the environment by rapidly responding to emergencies and hazardous situations. We are committed to prevention by proactively working with the community to reduce the risks to life, property, and the environment. Our motto is serving the community and enriching the city. Some of our quarter one highlights is that we recently kicked off our 2025 cohort. As a matter of fact, that was just about a week or so ago, of the MFD EMS Pathways Academy. It started on March 10th. 20 interns will be completing the process, and that's already down to 19, unfortunately, but we'll be completing the process of obtaining their emergency medical technician certification in preparation for employment in the EMS fields, to include firefighter. It's been a very successful program for us. We started it in 2016, I believe, and outside of 1 year that we had to shut it down for COVID, it's been very successful for us. We've completed the hiring process for a class of 21 fire cadets set to begin their schooling in April, and we've completed the transfer of the behavioral crisis response contract to the fire department, and have been working on the process of really developing an effective partnership between us and Canopy Roots. Looking ahead to quarter two, we have promotional testing coming up for the ranks of fire captain and battalion chief. Battalion chief will be coming up first here in a couple of weeks in April. We are looking forward to the completion of the implementation of image trend software that will upgrade our incident reporting and put us in line with the state and federal government for incident reporting. We anticipate the training to happen in quarter two, going into quarter three, and to go live in quarter three. And I think that's all I have for you today. So
Thank you.
I will pass it on to.
And we're actually going to go to, if there's folks that want to get on queue to ask questions about the emergency management department and the fire department. We're splitting it into two, and then the last two. That way it's a little bit more smooth, and it's just not one department alone.
Thank you. Oh, there you go.
All right. I'll call him Council President Payton.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. Director Sayer, I was wondering if you have, this is going to be like a question that maybe you can't answer, but just any, from your perspective, impacts on changes at the federal level. I know your department is fairly heavily dependent on federal grants from FEMA and otherwise, so I was just curious if you've got any indication on what the future might bear.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair Chavez, Council President Payne. There was actually just an executive order released a few hours ago on that I've been reading through, and my understanding at this moment is that it is just around articulating that the current administration looks at preparedness as primarily a state and local responsibility. So there are lots of reviews planned according to the executive order, so I think we will be learning more as time goes along. And we will certainly share with you what we learn.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then Chief Tyner, really great to hear that BCR is, successfully integrating into the department. I know that we are part of the budget process wasn't just moving BCR over to fire, but also some supplemental funding. And are you aware of that? And is there any update on that I could understand how that's getting? There's some technical procurement things that I think need to be
Yes.
navigated with that. And I was just curious if there's any updates on that.
I am aware of that. I don't have an update on that. I think we're still working through, exactly what the money is for and how it should be allocated. So we're working through that with OCS, but we are aware that it is available, and we're looking forward to.
If I could get an
getting
update on
where it
that
needs
at
to be.
some point, maybe not on the dais, but if any new developments unfold, it would be good to know.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Wansley.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. Actually, President Payne asked the follow-up question, or asked the question that I was also interested in terms of the status update regarding the integration of BCR, if there has been a program manager, because I think that was another component that left NSD to accompany them, if they have that in place. Also, and I wouldn't expect you to also maybe know this answer, but maybe this is something that Commissioner could speak to, of like timeline of when we anticipate that integration being fully realized. Or maybe you also can speak to that.
Yeah, so through the chair to Vice Chair Wansley, I felt like that's a two-part question. One is the integration, and right now I can say that we've put that in the hands of our very capable Assistant Chief, Melanie Rucker. She has led the charge on the integration of BCR into the fire department, and I think it's going very well. As far as a program manager, we haven't hired one. I am making plans to hire one, though. I'm actually working on a JAQ to create that position, and I am hoping to maybe bring somebody on board later in the year if, the budget will support that.
So is Assistant Chief the current staff lead then that's relating to BCR? Because I know that was a thing that they flagged of making sure they have an on-point person in staff. Okay.
Assistant Chief Rucker is taking that on right now.
And possibly to the end of the year while you make budget decisions around that.
Correct. But it is my plan to bring on a director of BCR, whatever we're going to call it there.
Okay. That is good to know. And yes, I would like to stay updated too in terms of the funding allocation, specifically when that cost of living adjustment is intending to roll out. Because I think that was another big budget amendment that my colleagues brought forward and wanted to make sure that.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the 975 or whatever that number was. So.
Yes. Awesome. And I would say, President Payne, if that's something you would keep me looped in on too.
So I'd be happy to inform both of your offices once we have that all figured out.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay. I do have some ideas about it, but I'll update you that at a later time.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Next up, we have the Neighborhood Safety Department, Deputy Director Lakes.
Good afternoon. Ms. Leah Lakes with the Neighborhood Safety Department. So what we have done for Q1 is we've looked at our department's needs and challenges, and we've identified 3 critical priorities to help address our operational foundation and to strengthen that operational foundation. We're committed to achieving full staffing levels across our department. A complete team is essential to delivering high-quality services our community deserves. We have developed comprehensive training strategies and are working to create an environment that attracts and retains talented professionals. Second, we are implementing robust financial management practices to ensure timely and accurate payment of invoices. This objective will improve our relationship with vendors and contractors while maintaining fiscal responsibility. We are strengthening our internal processes and introducing new support to vendors to achieve this goal. Third, we're enhancing our contract management by identifying clear metrics and reporting requirements. This will allow us to better track performance, ensure accountability, and demonstrate the value of our programs to the community. Each contract will have specific, measurable outcomes that align with our department's mission. These objectives reflect our commitment to operate with excellence and responsible stewardship of public resources. We believe that these goals will significantly enhance our ability to serve Minneapolis residents. I'm pleased to announce several key additions to our team. We've successfully have hired several positions to neighborhood safety. these positions will strengthen our capacity to deliver effective public health programs and ensure efficient operations. We're actively in the hiring process for several critical roles, including a GVI/YGVI specialist, the AD of programming, a Minneapolis specialist, and a senior public health specialist for our community ambassador program pilot. Additionally, the positions for community engagement manager and senior epidemiologist were both recently closed, and we're currently in the process of reviewing resumes. Beyond staffing, we've made significant organizational improvements. We have established formal department procedures and streamlined our operations to ensure consistency in our work. We also have increased our collaboration with stakeholders, recognizing that strong partnerships are important for success. A particular focus has been on building team rapport and fostering collaboration within our department. We believe that a cohesive team is important for delivering the best possible services to our community. These developments reflect our commitment to building a strong, effective department that can meet the evolving needs of our city. I'm looking forward to seeing the positive impact that these changes have on our service delivery and community engagement. Here, I wanted to provide a visualization of the hiring process for NSD. This departmental organizational chart does not include any temporary positions, but only those positions that are budgeted on an ongoing basis. So you'll not see the community safety ambassador staff in this slide. You can see here that NSD has undergone several RFPs, single and sole source waivers, as well as extensions to current contracts. These procurement initiatives represent our comprehensive approach to public safety, one that combines immediate intervention to long-term prevention strategies. By continuing to invest in these programs and partnerships, we're building a stronger, safer community for all of our residents. We have also made significant strides on improving our financial management processes and contractor relationships. All outstanding payments to contractors for 2025 have been for 2024 have been successfully completed, marking an important milestone for our financial obligations. To enhance future operations, we have implemented new contractor procedures and conducted comprehensive invoice training sessions for all contractors during the first quarter of 2025. To provide additional support, we've also established dedicated office hours for contracting assistance, ensuring clear communication channels and timely resolutions of concerns. Beginning March 10th of 2025, we initiated the tracking of invoice resubmission rates, which will help us identify areas for process improvement and reduce payment delays. Looking ahead, we hope to continue making substantial progress on implementing key safety initiatives and strengthening our organizational capacity. Our goal for the next quarter is to focus on implementing the new GVI and YGVI contracts, as well as the Minneapolis contracts, so they are successfully executed and operational, allowing for seamless continuation of these critical violence prevention programs. We are also looking forward to seeing our hiring efforts yielding positive results, with several key positions filled, including specialized roles in public health and program management. We are also looking forward to the releasing of the RFP for the Master Contract in Violence Prevention. This Master Contract for Violence Prevention will allow us to streamline our ability to engage with service providers and implement a comprehensive violence prevention strategy. To enhance our vendor relationships and operational efficiencies, we will continue to enhance our robust vendor support systems, including regular training sessions, dedicated office hours, and improved communication channels. These improvements will significantly enhance our ability to manage contracts efficiently and ensure timely service. Now we go to 911.
Thank you. Welcome up, Director Hodney.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Joni Hodney, the Director of Minneapolis Emergency Communications Services. I always like to start with our mission statement. The staff of Minneapolis Emergency Communications Center helps save lives, protect property, and assist the public in their time of need. We achieve this by providing the critical link between public safety responders and the communities we serve by being efficient, courteous, and compassionate. Some of our Q1 highlights. We had a total number of calls received from January and February of 84,000, almost 85,000 calls. This is a 3.3% reduction from the same 2 months last year. The automated abandoned callback that we installed last fall, we are seeing approximately a 2% reduction in our calls being handled by the automated system. The commissioner mentioned staffing. We had 85 employees for about 4 hours, which is our full staffing numbers. And then through some changes, we did lose a couple of employees in MECC. With the 8 that we have with the radio shop, we're supposed to have a total of 93 employees. Currently, we are looking to fill about 5 to 7 positions, keeping in mind that 6 of these positions that are currently working are part-time employees. And the other spots that we have to fill will help with the gap of some of the upcoming retirements that we know will be taking place. While our staffing numbers are looking better, we still have some work to do. We have many new employees. It's requiring a lot of training, and it takes a little bit of extra time to answer the call. Also, if you'll remember, we changed our names at the beginning of the year from dispatchers and call takers to PST3 and PST2, so you'll hear me refer to them throughout the presentation. Currently, we have more PST2s than we have PST3s, which means we have more people to answer the phone calls than to dispatch them. It's going to take about a year for a call taker to really fully understand the job of 911 before being able to promote into the position of dispatch. Currently, with the 5 to 7 positions we're looking for, the majority of those are trying to go externally to try to find if we can get some dispatchers with experience from another center. Quality assurance numbers are staying steady, near 96 to 97%. Our peer support team attended a 4-hour training to build on their skills and help with internal staffing, as well as our new EAP rep has been spending time down there with an open door policy for staff members to go in and visit with them. The radio shop has completed the microwave work that they have been working on for the last few months. What this does is if there's a failure at one point, it will pick up and make sure it's working at another point's backup center, basically, so we won't have a failure in our communications system. 2025 has had the radio shop busy also with radio and computer swap outs on multiple squads and rigs. It has been a really smooth move bringing the radio shop over to us and integrating it into our department, and we look forward to getting to work with them more. Our look ahead, during the next couple of months, we're planning on filling the remaining vacant positions. Classrooms for promotional opportunities from a PST2 to a PST3 will be taking place. We just completed one upgrade to our CAD system that's going to prepare us for a much larger upgrade that will be coming this fall, which will change the look of the system, but also the efficiency for the call takers and dispatchers and input. We're increasing the number of quality assurance calls, adding more mental health call evaluations. Our COOP plan walkthrough with MECC will take place with the Emergency Management Department in May. So by that time, we will be integrating a full COOP plan with the radio shop into our plan. The radio shop is working closely with Property Services in the work for the first police precinct, making sure the radios and phones work on all levels and parking areas in the working spaces there. And the work will continue with MECC and the radio shop on communications between the two departments to track radio or communications issues. And that is all I have. Commissioner, are you coming back up again, or do you just have questions?
No, I see Chair Wansley's ready.
The first person up is Vice Chair Wansley.
I do have questions, not for you, Director Joni. Starting with Neighborhood Safety Department, Deputy Director Lakes. Starting on slide 25, I'm just trying to recall, is the Public Health Specialist Program Manager, specifically Public Health Specialist 2, is that for Minneapolis specifically?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, good. And then can you speak to, or speak more about the responsibilities that will be attached to the Community Engagement Manager, and how you envision that role shaping programmatic outcomes within NSD?
Chair Chavez, Vice Chair Wansley, very good question. That position is, I'll back up a little bit. The job of the GVI specialist and the Minneapolis specialist are very specific to contracts. So they are looking at the work in the contract and the communities that are affected by that specific contract. This community engagement manager position is doing a very similar thing, but for the city of Minneapolis. So they're looking at the communities within the city of Minneapolis. They're looking at the different audiences. They're looking at whose needs are getting served. They're looking for gaps. They're looking for feedback on how the different work of the contracts is going, as well as what other organizations are serving those communities, and making sure that we are communicating with those communities the work that we're doing, as well as letting the community communicate with us what gaps they're seeing and what other needs there are to be met.
Okay, that's good to know. And I know you talk about the hiring of some of the technical assistance providers. Will they, I know there's a lot of emphasis on using those services for the vendors that are being selected, but will they also be doing training for staff? Because I think I shared this at the last presentation, hearing lots of focus around definitely contract management, but making sure that staff have a baseline understanding of each program, because even amongst this body, there's been lots of confusion around what is YGVI. GVI, how that differs from violence interruption services or Minneapolis. So making sure our staff are aware of that too. So will there be training for those staff members on that?
Yeah, Chair Chavez, Vice Chair Wansley, the short answer is yes. The community engagement manager will probably work with the communication staff within the city to help work on those definitions and that education of the public. And the job of educating the vendors on specific things like invoices and what the programs do, that will probably live with the public health specialists on that specific contract pieces.
Okay, so key components of this position is working with comms, so media outreach, which then makes me think why I know OCS has about 4 media specialists. Why not use those? But then another piece, it sounds like there is a component of outreach that will be involved to the vendors, not so much educational awareness amongst staff within. You said that would be the public health specialists or the program managers for these specific programs role.
Yeah, Chair Chavez, Vice Chair Wansley, the specific staff internal to NSD, the training on what all those different things are and our different programs will probably go to their manager. So whoever that staff's manager is will probably be the main facilitator. They might ask the community engagement manager to do a specialized like presentation at a staff meeting on a specific topic, but generally that will be the manager's job. Then the community engagement manager would also, for media, things that OCS's staff are doing, would be that point person with NSD. So they would be the ones who's kind of project managing any website updates or anything like that, and they'd be that point person, in addition to going out to community events, bringing information to community about what we do. They're more of the bridge between the wider community, not just those who have contracts with us.
Okay. And then just going to the YGBI position, I'm looking at slide 26 now. I wanted to get a sense, because that position specifically is still in process. Do you anticipate if that position will be filled by the time those services are supposed to go live on April 1st?
Chair Chavez, Vice Chair Wansley, services should go April 1st. We are currently in the second round of interviews for that position. Those second round of interviews are taking place Thursday and Friday. We probably would have a start date around April 15th, ish. So it would be close, but it probably won't be before.
So which staff member within NSD is helping really run point on supporting these programs to be ready by then? And it sounds like even then there'll still have to be some time for onboarding for this new program manager.
Chair Chavez, Vice Chair Wansley, correct. There are a combination of different staff who are supporting different pieces of that. The program assistant is assisting some of those pieces, as well as the public health specialist too, who's hired, this first one in blue, who attended that training and is doing some of that support, as well as our newly hired business analyst. They're doing the implementation of the referral process and the data entry pieces. They'll be supporting that aspect of the work, as well as our AD of compliance and AD of finance on the training on how to do the invoicing, as well as the training around the contract.
Okay, so they'll continue to run that in a transitional capacity until this person is fully onboarded. Okay, and then can you also share what the two program assistants are, what's the second one for? Or, do they have a different portfolio of work amongst the two different positions?
Chair Chavez, Vice Chair Wansley, the second position is a similar body of work that they kind of shared. Because that position is now vacant, there may be some changes in that work that they are doing. So it's a little bit of a TBD for the future of this position's workload compared to the current body of work that the current person does.
Okay. Can you share a little bit? It's interesting to just see them kind of isolated on their own, as opposed to like supporting either, programming or, so why are they kind of off on a island?
Chair Chavez, Vice Chair Wansley, the intent isn't for them to be on an island. This position recently became open, so it looks a little dramatic in a different color. They do report up directly to the deputy director position, as well as the other positions you see there. So I think, and then they don't have anyone who's going to report to them. So it feels a little isolated on this visualization, but their work is to support the program staff and to do things like helping to support scheduling, to do things like supporting getting quotes for the vendors' T-shirts that are needed for interruption work, to support getting printouts for different community events. That kind of body of work is what they support.
Okay. And then going to slide 29, want to get a little bit more context about the master contract. I think this relates to a question I raised at AO around how are you all ensuring cultural inclusivity being prioritized within whatever this process is. So I'll start with that question first.
Chair Chavez, Vice Chair Wansley, thank you for that question. We're very excited about this master contract because what it is it's a group of vendors who apply, and then they are on this contract to wait for work to need to happen. And then when we have specific things that happen that are a little bit unpredictable or are in a specific geographic area, instead of going through the whole lengthy RFP process, everyone who's on this master contract has already gone through the RFP process and they're just waiting for work. So if we say we need this kind of language skills and this kind of expertise, we can go to this group and we can issue something called a FAN to say these are the requirements that we're looking for, and those who meet those requirements in the master contract can apply for that, and then the work can be issued and started much quicker than a 3 to 6 month RFP process.
Okay. And follow-up question on that, can you share a little bit how then this initiative is different from, I'm thinking of the community trauma response services or violence prevention services funding, only in thinking of kind of like having groups on retainer. I know there's been incidents in my ward, like one year we had a unfortunate motorcycle accident that residents in the neighborhood witnessed, and we reached out to NSD to say, could you do some restorative justice circles or something like that? And they were able to pull someone from their community trauma response. So like had someone on retainer, it wasn't related to a specific program, but they use that program to kind of fulfill, it feels like a similar kind of purpose as this master contract. So just trying to see how there's not duplication there.
Chair Chavez, Vice Chair Wansley, excellent question. I would love to respond in a response memo to that, but as a higher level in less detail, the master contract is for work maybe that we don't have in those contracts. Like we do have a restorative justice contract, and that's very great, but if we didn't, that would be, and then that work is guaranteed. So the work here in the master contract is not guaranteed, where that contract is guaranteed work, but then as events do come up, that can be added to that work.
Okay. So a follow-up on that one. Okay, staff follow-up. That's noted. Yep, and that's all the questions that I had.
Great, thank you. And thank you all for the presentation. No one else is left on queue. So seeing no further questions, I'll direct the clerk to receive and file that update. And seeing no further business before us, I will declare this meeting adjourned.